momentarily okay emotionally, what are you doing in the long run? You're making it harder and harder for you to keep digesting what you need to digest. You see what I'm saying? You get in a negative pattern. You got to start feeding yourself appropriately to where the burdens begin to lift off. Does that make sense? And we get caught in these traps. And the body's talking to us 24/7 in millions of ways. Yeah.
Yeah, Freud said that sometimes a cigar is simply a cigar.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even though we take everything that we just said, put it in stage 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because stage 1 could be looking physically to see if you're not physically causing that shoulder.
Right.
Like, for example, the example of the patient with the tilted
Pelvis.
Okay. For 5 or 6 years, she's a tall person.
Mm-hmm.
She operated a car, or a little small
Right.
van.
Mm-hmm.
Did not give her room enough. Her right foot was on the accelerator this way because she didn't have enough room in the car.
So she compensated for all that.
So she forced her right pelvic into this position and her foot into that position for years and years of driving in this car. Mm-hmm. So you rule out the physical, then you move into the other. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and the thing about that is, I think the physical needs to be looked at, and that's something I wasn't doing. I was going all with consciousness, because to me it ends there. Because I could take that even further and look at her even deeper and say that the reason she has that car, just like the house is set up the fucking way you have it set up, is because she has issues with all this she's creating. It all is going to go back to consciousness. I don't care about the physical body, but you still need to address the physical body. What car she has, how she's driving, what she's doing, the pattern, that goes deeper than the physical. And yeah, you have to look at the physical, but it's always, always, always going to go deeper. And I'm so convinced of that.
That's where you can go back and look at her issues over finances.
Right.
As to why she put herself in a financial position where she could only afford buying a car from this one auto place that would, and that was the only car available at that time that she could afford. Mm-hmm. So I guess you could go back into that.
And you could go ahead.
Finances tend to be a masculine thing.
Exactly.
To be on the right.
And she's having to she's having to push that masculine creative energy forward, moving her forward. I've got a book that actually breaks down the different parts of the car. Shocks are about supporting yourself. Everything is every freaking thing. I'm 100% convinced now. All goes back to consciousness, period. You could even take that whole financial issue back further. What happened in childhood? What were the patterns that were set up there where she didn't feel maybe supported by her father? And on and on.
And that's a fact.
Yeah. So, there you go. There you go. So you've got to get to that shit, go to the root, take that out for the change to be a permanent one. Yeah, we're going to temporarily fix things, but if you want to permanently change the soul, that's what I'm after. And you've got to keep digging deeper and deeper, not these shallow little pits. But, yeah, thank you. That's perfect. What were we on? Who were we talking about? Oh, neck pain. Okay. Did that help anything? Did that help, Christy?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Also, astrology-wise, the neck area here is Taurus. Okay. Taurus is a what? A bull, right? And what is it? Bulls usually, they were a beast of what? Burden, right? Going back to the shoulders, this huge wooden yoke. Imagine carrying that. That's going to give you a bunch of neck problems. So neck area, typically in this case, especially, when you feel like you got to do this to get tension relief, that's like you're wanting mentally, emotionally to shrug something off, right? You can see it. It's like you're trying to get it off, but you can't because it's inside. Does that make sense? Because the relationships you wind up in, the car you have, the house you have, every freaking thing goes back to your mental, emotional patterns. And I will swear on a Bible for that. I'll burn in hell for that. Of course I would, back a couple hundred years ago, for saying that. But I'm totally convinced now, without a shadow of a doubt. And it took me a long time to get to that point. I was raised Baptist, and there were points where I'd be like, okay, I'm doing evil stuff now. But now I have no fear. I get it.
And what about the spirit itself on the houses?
Yeah, there's also that, because when and again, what draws you to that? Like I had a friend who moved into a house up north, and lots of weird kind of stuff happened, and it turned out that it felt like there was a brothel was there. And lots of negative things that happened, like she would even see spirits and weird kind of poltergeistic thing happen. But in her own life, there was a little bit of an issue of selling herself in a relationship. Not like for money, but how many times do we all do that though, right? I've fucking done that. Yeah, so that's all a reflection. I don't care what it is. It's always going to come back to you. Always come back to you. It's a collective play out. But once you become an adult, I mean, I would never be talking to children with this because I'd be talking to the parents that are setting the patterns. You know what I mean? But once you're here, everybody here is an adult, then you've got control of your consciousness. Yeah, you've came by all your war scars in honest ways. You know, I'm empathic the way I am because of my environment. Most of the empathic people I know had negative environments, and they unconsciously trained themselves to be able to sense, you know, when Daddy comes home and walks through the door, I know he's in a good mood or a bad mood, what I should do from there. So, you know, I know things aren't all perfect, but once we get to a certain point, we have to take responsibility for ourselves. And that's what the spiritual work's about. Anybody else? We're going to go over one more, and I'm going to have you all do a little exercise, if anybody has anything.
Floaters in the eyes.
Floaters in the eyes. Okay, well, let's just look at it. I mean, we could sit here and talk for a week, right, on these different issues. What are eyes about? Seeing. Okay. What did the floaters do?
They do distract because you'll look a specific direction. You'll move from one thing into another, and it'll be like it'll just kind of move. It's like a shadow in your vision.
So we got distracting your vision. Okay. The eyes are governed by liver gallbladder. Okay. So there could be a liver gallbladder issue tied in, but again, it always goes back to mental emotional. What do liver and gallbladder do in the body? The emotions, anger, and resentment, but just physically, what do? They clean. They clean the body, right? And that's what anger's about. That's why anger is associated with the liver and gallbladder. That's why it's actually related to spring. We have to spring clean. You know, if we worked with the system properly, we would spring clean, not just outside but inside. We'd do like the bitter herbs and things that would clean our liver and gallbladder. So anger pushes the shit that you don't like anymore out of your life. But we have all these negative programs. So when we get angry, we go, oh, Mommy said not to push. So we let all that implode. So it's going to blow out somewhere. Does that make sense? Sometimes it's just an emotional issue that you have not let go, and that emotional issue is clouding your vision. And you got to let go of that anger on some level. I'm not saying that's the entire issue, but you know, so that's one aspect of it. The emotions clouding your ability to see something clearly, even if it's just yourself. Does that make sense? I mean, we could keep going on and on and on.
Oh, this is perfect because one of my patients has red, swollen eyes all up here, all in here, above and below.
Wow.
Okay. Tested her liver gallbladder. Okay. We did, I've done poultices and all kinds of treatment. She's getting better.
Right.
But I wasn't quite sure she was ready to look at the spiritual, emotional, mental aspect of it. And what you just explained is exactly what's going on. I mean, she has a grown daughter who won't grow up.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's literally having to raise the 2 grandchildren. And her life is, she's just got so much anger built up that she is not allowing herself to say, okay, daughter, I'm cutting you off financially, emotionally, mentally. You need to go away. Right. You know? Yeah. But she's tied to these 2 kids, but she doesn't want to be so totally influenced by her daughter. Yeah. See, and life is messy because we get it's like a fly trap. It's like, you know, in the beginning of something like a relationship, it doesn't seem like very bad because we have this big spectrum. But before you know it, you get into this bad bottleneck that you feel like, oh my God, it's going to take me 10 years to get the hell out of this, right? That's the bad place to be, okay? So, but we all do that because of our patterns taking us there. You know, and what Donna said is, you know, in an unfortunate way, but everybody has free will, is that person's got to be willing to turn around and begin to open that back up, open her vision back up, and see things that she's been doing to herself, and around survival. And those patterns probably go back even further than that. You know, there's an octave of each emotion. Like I said, anger relates to liver gallbladder, but frustration is like low-level anger, right? We all have frustration. It's like, you know, frustration can turn into road rage in traffic, right? So we have frustration, anger, resentment. When you start getting into the really, really negative of emotions is when you actually start getting dis-ease. Because the more
dis-ease in the mind and the emotion, the more the physical body starts showing. Because the physical body is just the screen. It's just the screen reflecting what's the fuck inside of me, right? Sorry, there's an explanation point sometimes. Okay. So basically, it's like saying you've got to change something now. Sometimes it's that drastic. If you don't change something now, you're going to wind up in the hospital. Okay? And sometimes it takes that. And sometimes people still don't even get it, right? But you can't make them get it, unfortunately. You can offer. That's all you can do. So does that make sense so far where we're going? I'm going to show y'all something here.
Can I ask you a quick
Yeah.
question? Since you're doing all these analogies, what about somebody falling in a fire and burning their hand? That's something.
The right hand?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I can make up anything, really. Well, they tripped like a campfire?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are they right-handed?
Right-handed.
They're right-handed. Well, part of that's going to be to save yourself to begin with.
Save yourself.
But there's so much going on with the palm of the hand. And what's interesting is it has a lot to do with fire. The pericardium meridian starts right about here on both sides, and it comes down the inside of the body. Another cool thing about the body is if you ball up in a ball, all of the meridians that run inside the body are feminine, and all the ones on the outside are masculine. And there's a reason for that, because the pattern is telling you the masculine is supposed to protect the feminine, right? So going back to this, the pericardium is the sac that surrounds the heart. Okay, it's the emotional heart. And right in the center, if you take your middle finger and you bring it in right into the center of your palm, that is your palm chakra. Okay, in acupuncture, it is pericardium 8, which is called the labor point. So when you're doing healing work, whether you're massaging, when you're talking to someone, the healing comes from your emotional heart. If you're not in the right state, healing doesn't come through. Okay, that's why when you're really being worked on someone, how their hands will get warm. That tells you if they're in the right state, because the fire is coming out. That healing energy, chi, is coming through. So it could be that this person was having an issue with releasing something. Because remember, the right hand is masculine; it's outgoing, right? Incoming, outgoing, and that they literally need something to push that out of their. They say they had an emotional heart scar. And they needed to literally burn something to get that energy moving. Does that make sense? Because literally, we will accidentally cut, break or something to either stimulate the meridian flow, because all these have meridians coming off the fingers, toes, places all over the face. We will cut, break, bruise, chop off, whether we are trying to either increase the flow or slow the flow down. To me, that's like a dramatic stimulation. Fires. So it was like this person may inside, not even being aware at the moment, has had this huge heart issue, and they were needing it to release, and their environment, their feng shui, their co-creative ability with spirit made that event happen. And you go, oh, what an accident! Who's the asshole? No, you did it. Does that make sense? I mean, that's how I see it. But I live in a weird world, so. I'm gonna have y'all practice with this for a second. And I was talking to, this fits in really good because it goes in with, but Bambi was talking to me something earlier in a sec, and I'll have her share her experience. Would you agree that most things that are alive are moving?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. In Chinese medicine, there's usually one of three things happening if there's a particular illness in the body. One is the energy is not flowing at all. It's been slowed down, or it's been distracted or diverted. Just like railroad tracks, right? It's going the wrong way, it's being cut off, or it's being slowed down, okay? But that indicates, though, that life needs to always be moving. Life needs to be always, it's when we resist movement that pain actually comes. It's not the other way around. Pain doesn't come first. We resist the flow, and then we get pissed, okay? Or we get whatever. And that causes the pain. So I'm going to use you, Katie, as an example. I'm going to have you stand up for a second. And I'm just going to pretend like I'm Chi, okay? Let's say that Katie's got an issue in her relationship, and... Sorry?
My pain's right here.
Okay. We're not really focusing on pain.
He's going to be Chi.
Yeah, I'm Chi, okay? Cheech and Chong. I'm going to be Chi, and Katie's having this issue in her life with her relationship where She's got some, she's uncomfortable in a relationship, and she's being pushed by her heart and chi to move somewhere, to move forward, okay? But she's got her own, you see how she put her feet down? Yeah, try to move me. Okay?
Horse stance.
Yeah. And we're going to do that a little bit. I'm going to turn sideways, and I want you to kind of set your feet ground there.
Okay.
And you're going to resist. Okay, first you're going to go with me a little, okay? Just to play this out. I'm going to push, you're going to go with me. Even if you've got to move, walk forward, don't fall on your face. You know, the universe isn't trying to push you on your face. You move with it, so move with it. You got to move.
Okay.
Good. Okay, keep it.
You want me to go?
Yeah, okay, now come back. Okay. How did that feel?
That didn't feel anything, so it was natural.
Okay, so now I want you to actually resist me pushing you forward. Okay? Right? Okay. What's the difference there?
You think you're strong.
No, what is your experience there?
It took effort.
It took effort, okay. Did you have to tense and tighten yourself up?
Yes.
Okay. So,
Support yourself into
what I'm saying...
uncomfortable positions.
I do what?
She made her center of gravity
She was-
shorter
yeah,
to
yeah.
would make it harder. to
Yeah.
push her
So
forward.
what I'm trying to get though is that universe, we're like swimming in chi. Okay, we're in this entire soup, right? So here, she's got some issues. Spirit's trying to help her, but from her own issues, she's resisting the movement. The resistance is what causes the pain. That's what I'm trying to tell you, okay? If you go with, okay, go with me. If you go with what the universe is trying to do, there's no pain. Okay? So imagine that every pain in your body comes from what? You got it. So what's the answer? What's the answer to no pain? Go with the flow, no resistance. Sometimes that is, okay, you need to compromise in the relationship. Okay, move with you. You need to get the hell out of the relationship. Okay? See, the resistance to the flow is what's going to cause the problem. And what happens is all these patterns are programming in the computer. So you go back to childhood, like I should stay because, you know, this is what I'm supposed to do. Religion has a lot of programming within it. So she winds up staying and going against the natural flow, the Tao is what that's referred to. Then what happens, that's when your life sucks. That's when there's pain starts showing up in your life. You don't resist, there's no pain. Or there's minimal pain, because if you hurt, you go, oh, wow, okay, I see what this is about. I need to move on with this and quit doing the same thing. Does that make sense? Okay.
If all else fails, you go to Stephen for a massage and he works the pain out.
Yeah. I mean, there's your temporary fix. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Did you really fix anything though? Seriously.
Well, I
For
fixed
the
the
moment.
physical issue.
Yeah, you know, and it felt good. There was some relief.
Yes.
But I'm sorry,
It
Donna.
was a temporary distraction.
I was just gonna say, talk about going with the flow. This was so crazy. Christmas Day, I'm coming home from my mother's, coming around Southwest.
You're
Parkway.
driving out that
There was a tow truck pulling out this
other car that had
other
crashed.
car, very deep.
Uh-huh.
You know, in fact, later I found out broken axle really messed up his
Eesh.
car. The person was okay. So I'm coming around them, and I see this accident. So I'm blessing them, you know,
Yeah.
that everything's going to be okay. And the moment I finished the blessing, I was picked up hydroplane, swirled
Oh my
around and around and around, and it's like it was so funny because I went right into, okay, Lord, we're going for a ride, so let's go with the flow and just let me down easy.
Yeah.
And it's like that's exactly what I
Yep.
went.
And you were fine though.
And then I was on the side. I was stuck. I couldn't get out.
Right.
You know, by car. You know,
Uh-huh.
just down in all the
Uh-huh.
snow and everything like that. But I got out of the car, walked down to the tow guy, and said, "Hey, when you're done."
Yeah. But that's a really good.
That is a perfect
Yeah.
physical example of going with the flow.
Ice is, because the thing about ice is, you know, because I was driving out in it Summit too, is like once you start to slip, you can't do this resistant reaction really quick, right? You actually got to go slow. You got to go with the chi flow. It makes me think of like these little crystal bowls. Okay. And the trick to playing a crystal bowl is once the vibration starts, I see it like a ridge of energy. And if you're on the ridge, the energy will build. But if you don't stay up with the way it wants to flow, not me, but if I'm not staying with the flow, it doesn't play. See, I'm a little ahead of it now. I'm slowing it down, getting in where it wants to be. And that's how we get harmonies. We get into the sync with the flow. We don't try to control it completely. Yeah, where there's a co-creative process where you put things out there. But like Deborah said, you're putting that vibration like a voice. Imagine these vibrational waves going into your future. You are playing with that. But what comes back to you, because something's always come back to you like an echo, right? Like if you send a dolphin, sends out like submarines, they'll send out an echo, and then what comes back? So when you're putting something out, it's already on its way back. So there's a co-creative process. There's two waves happening, not just one. And it's how you get in flow with that, or not in flow, that makes your life harmonious or disastrous. So movement equals life, and resistance is the loss of life or pain. Okay? So when a pain shows up, what can you ask yourself? Based on what I just said.
What am I resisting?
Exactly, Mary Ellen. What am I resisting? You know, if that was that easy, if it really is, if you can really focus into that, and I'm going to give you the maps to that as we go on with this Sunday after Sunday. And a lot of you have already seen some of my stuff, so you have a bigger picture. But basically, just asking, what am I resisting in this moment? Because sometimes it's not like a lifelong thing. It's not a lifelong pattern. It's something that's acute in the moment. So what am I resisting now? You know, maybe you're with your families at Christmas and you're like, oh my God, my neck is starting to kill me. It's like, you know, and your body's like saying, I really am tired of listening to Uncle Bill and his stupid stories. You know, that's literally what it's saying, okay? And you have to come inside and go, okay, I can let that go. I can let my emotions go with this, and I can be receptive and take in what he's saying. You know what I mean? There's ways of playing with it. So somebody truly spiritual, it's not about controlling what's going on. It's like a lot of what Donna said. It's the balance of also going with what's happening in the environment. If we could control everything, we would screw up just as much. You know, if we had complete control, we would guaranteed mess up a bunch of things. But it's a growth process. We're going through lots of things in our growth. But does that make sense? Our pain comes from resistance. You know, it's that simple. And sometimes if you give in to that resistance, it may relieve some, but then there may be another pain that shows up. So it's like you have to keep digging deeper and finding out what's underneath, what's underneath, what's underneath. I'm going to go over this muscle chart here because it's a really handy chart for you to use for yourself, or if you're a massage therapist or counselor, anything really. The different colors are the different elements. The green is the wood element. Red is fire. Remember I said fire goes into earth. Earth is yellow. So fire is red. Maybe that in order. Fire is red. Earth is yellow. The gray or black is metal. Metal moves into blue, which is water. Water moves into wood, which is green. So when you see green on the chart, and you know that it's related to wood, what are the two? So within every, okay, this is how it breaks down. You have yin and yang. It's a huge breakdown system. You could say that literally there's just pure energy flowing. Actually, this is how our galaxy looks. We've got a black hole at the center of our galaxy, and then we have these two funnels that shoot up, and the basis of our galaxy goes on this flat plane. The cool thing about that is we have that exact same structure around our body, which means we're a galaxy within ourselves. Okay, so we have pure energy, and then from pure energy, we break down into yin and yang is not a two-dimensional structure. It's actually very, very in-depth. Just like right now, we're more into more into yin, right? When morning comes, it's a slow moving, and then we're in yang, and then we go back into yin. And we actually reenact a bunch of these things throughout the day. Yin is Mother Earth, right? Mother, your mother, the womb going in. At night, what do we all do? We crawl back into the womb. It's a symbolic thing about going back into the womb. In the morning, it's like the resurrection. We're coming back out into the yang. We enact these things and don't even realize what we're doing anymore. If you bring sacredness to the act of doing those, your life becomes more and more potentialized. Like if you're aware of okay, I'm going back into Mother Earth to be nurtured as I sleep, and then you're going back out, taking that nurturing out into the world to make it a better place, to make your life a better life. Because each day you wake up, you should be different. You should not be the same. If you're not different, there's some pattern that you're letting run your life. You should constantly be having change, change, change. Okay, so for example, the huge pec muscle here relates to liver and gallbladder, right? You see the big old guys in the gym, all puffed up, right? Usually they're carrying a lot of anger, okay? And if you do a steroid, and that's not like I mean to stereotype that, but there's a thing about muscles is muscles are storage vessels for emotion, okay? Your body will shove emotion into muscle before it'll shove it into an organ. And why would your body do that? Why would the intelligence of your body do that?
Protect you.
Yeah, your muscle. If you can't move your right arm, I mean your right arm must be switched.
Your other right.
If you can't move your left arm, are you in like mortal? Do what?
Jeopardy.
Right.
Fight for life.
Yeah. No, you're not in life jeopardy, right? But if your liver is crapping out on you, you're going to wind up in the hospital, right? So your body will store in muscle. So sometimes a lot of these guys that are muscled up, not always. The difference is when you see somebody that has shoved a lot of emotion, they're stiff as hell, okay? You can be huge and be flexible, but the people that are like built like bricks and they can barely move, like a brick house and can barely move, they're making all this space for this emotion that they cannot get out. And they're just making a bigger and bigger prison for themselves. Does that make sense? Okay, and that's not always the case. Like Jim's a big guy, but he's also flexible. He does yoga and there's movement to it. Now there's some people that are, and it's like punch, That's when you get into trouble because you're storing a bunch of this negative emotion in your body. And we're going to get into this more and more. So remember, like I said, the neck muscles are all about stomach. Stomach meridian's about what? Stomach in general is about what? Digesting. Being able to take in, assimilate, and use what life is offering. If you cannot take in the appropriate rate, like somebody's force feeding you, that's what you can think about that. It's like, you're choking me, right? You're going to start closing this off and saying, no, 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 Or in other ways, also, you could be starving. You can be starving, too, and then you can have neck pains because you're not feeding yourself. You're out here feeding everybody else, like Mother Teresa, but not feeding yourself. Mother Teresa died of heart issues. And I'm not going to get totally into that story, but there's lots of patterns around how she was really strict on the people she worked with, the nuns and everything, which is actually coming from a place of actually having a closed heart, not an open heart. So sometimes just because you see somebody do certain actions doesn't mean they're exactly coming from the right place. That's the truth for lots of us. Okay. Shoulders, you've got anger issues on the front. On the transverse out here, you go more into the lung area. So all these different muscles relate to different parts of the body. Also, the lats are a spleen muscle. So remember how we tap it right here for the spleen? And spleen usually relates to, spleen and pancreas in Chinese medicine are one thing. What does the pancreas do in the body? Secretes insulin. What is it helping you digest? Sweets and carbs, right? So the people with pancreas issues have an issue with being able to take in and enjoy life, period. That's exactly what it's about, and there's nothing more to it. They cannot take it in. Either it's a perception that they're not being fed, or like they're totally making it up, or it's actually true. There's usually some components there. It's not. So in other words, if you mentally think no one's feeding you, but they could be feeding you and you still not get it, you know what I mean? You're still going to cause a pancreas problem. So it's coming from a place of lack and not getting to enjoy the sweet things in life, which means you're typically going to crave those things because you're trying to self-medicate. Does that make sense? And then you wind up remember, too much sugar dampens the energy, so you wind up having pancreas, stomach issues, and all these other problems because you're trying to nurture yourself where you didn't have it before. That's something I've had to work on, and I continue to work on. And the whole pattern is interesting when you look at it. I just kind of look through my life periodically, and each time I see something more in depth. When I was born, my mother was unable to breastfeed me. Really interesting thing about breastfeeding. Breastfeeding has a substance in there. It's a natural sugar, mannitol. Mannitol is actually the alcohol form in foods. It's part of your immune system. And in the healing mushrooms like the ones that are known as being medicinal, why they're medicinal is they have high levels of mannitol within them. Okay, and actually in the biblical story, when they were in the Exodus and these little, round white things were on the ground in the morning, that was manna. It was actually mushrooms that had grown. They were eating mushrooms. Okay, and actually if you actually look at the religious people's hats back then, they go out. They're a fucking mushroom, right? So they were doing like psychedelics and, whoa, Jesus, dude. They were like really out there. Had crystals on their little, I've got a picture of, they actually had this grid with crystals on it that they wore. That's what they actually had to go in and interact with the Ark of the Covenant. So there's lots of more trippy stuff to the religion than we actually even know, that people don't even talk about. So this layering happens over and over. The eyes relate to liver, gallbladder. Your nose is your colon and your sinuses. So I'm having issues releasing something right now, and I've got this sinus thing going on. So I'm in the process of doing that, and it's like, I'm working with letting some things go. That's lungs, and that's colon letting go. The opposite of letting go, all right, let's say letting go is good, right? But if you let go too much, what would you call that related to the colon? Diarrhea, right? That's like the bottom's falling out. That person has issues where they feel like they can't hold on to what they need. Does that make sense? It's like, everything that I need keeps going out. I can't hold on. And that's in their mind, but their body's going to reflect. What would be the opposite of diarrhea? The peristalsis goes, right? And it's like, I have this and I don't want to lose it. So you get miserly. And then your ears are related to kidneys, okay? It's interesting in the wintertime how we typically have lots of ear issues because of the cold wind and everything, and that's governed by kidneys and bladder, which govern wintertime. Your mouth, of course, is your stomach and your spleen. And then the skin all over is fire. It's touch. Think about fire as passion, right? So that's how we ignite each other's passion, is by touch, right? I think that's all I wanted to cover there. Any questions so far what I'm covering? Discussing? Anybody have something that they want to go back and look at as far as the body goes?
What were you saying about your mom with the mom?
Oh, thank you. Totally got sidetracked. She was going, because I got sidetracked on the mannitose. I didn't get that dose of immune system, so I was a very sickly kid. I had a hernia when I was 7 years old, I think. I remember missing Halloween. I had allergies, did that scratch test. I was allergic to everything. But the interesting thing about that is it pushed me to become stronger and stronger through that. And I had asthma. My mom, one of the best things she did was take me off that inhaler. And don't have an issue with that at all. Even though I got some sinus stuff going on right now, processing some grief and letting go, I don't have asthma popping up. I never weakened back to that point. She was unable to breastfeed me because she had some issues. And I think when I was 3 years old, because her health was off, she had thyroid cancer. So they went in, radiated, take out the thyroid. She's always been on the Synthroid. But the funny thing about that, going into this being able to take in the sweetness, she was someone that wanted to give, but didn't feel like they had the energy to give. So she would give, and then there would be this guilty feeling that she would unconsciously do in giving. So I began to no thanks. If somebody gets here, you see that movement again? It's like, no thanks. So if somebody wants to give me something, the pattern I learned was, I don't want the guilt afterwards. I'd rather do without, okay?
So when she was giving, she was laying guilt on the other person.
Yeah, not consciously. It was all unconscious. Okay. Yeah, it was all the other person because she wanted to give. But thyroid is about you being able, it's also about the throat chakra. And remember that you have the heart chakra, the lower three chakras are masculine, the upper three are feminine, and they marry each other going out from the heart. Solar plexus needs to marry to your throat. You don't have any power unless you speak up for yourself, right? So she was unable to speak up for herself in her current relationship, and she didn't have the energy to move forward. So whenever she gave, she would feel depleted. And thyroid, if your thyroid's low, you're just feel depleted all the time, right? So she would want to give, but then have to take it back because she needed it for herself. Does that make sense? So my pattern, one of the patterns I learned was no thanks, I'll do it myself, which has its own issues, that I'm currently ending part of that, learning that process and working on some other. But it's an amazing trip when you look at the whole thing, how it all fits together, just like that. Can you see how the whole, All of us have stories like that. We have stories back to childhood, and we have stories going on right now. And every one of those stories, our interpretation, our interaction with them, is causing the restriction that causes the pain.
What about missing muscles or missing?
Oh, that totally relates into too. Like I know somebody that's got a kidney that's not really supported like it should be. So there's always this kidney bladder issue, but it's on the right side, and there was issues with the father missing. So all of it goes back to different issues. It just depends. Like say if somebody, based on the map I've given you, let's say that somebody, through some accident, their left trapezius was missing, okay? Well, then you would look at, okay, what does that muscle relate to? Where is it located? It relates to burdens. It's helping you hold your shoulder up. Trapezius is kidneys, bladder, fear. So there could be some kind of fear, traumatic, some trauma, some fear that happened related to not being supported or whatever, and then they lost that. Does that make sense? I mean, I can make it up. I can make something else up. That doesn't sound good. So it's a trip. It's a trip how the mind and body all work together. That's what I love about what I get to play with. Anybody? We do one more person if anybody's got something they want to look at.
You went over the stomach, and I think it'd be neat to just briefly go over all these.
Okay. Okay, I've already gone over the 5 senses, right? Sight, taste, hearing, all that, right? Okay, so most of the neck muscles are like the anterior neck flexors, the pectoralis major clavicle. Those are all stomach, okay? The only other muscle that is in the neck area that is not stomach is the trapezius. You see the blue? That's the only other one. So most neck issues are going to be stomach related. And usually the trapezius doesn't really manifest too much in the neck. It usually manifests more from the neck out. Does that make sense? Okay, they're going to be like, it hurts right here. So like with Mary Ann, her higher shoulder is going to have to do a lot with that trapezius, because that trapezius has to engage in order to bring that up. Does that make sense? Okay. So there could be an issue about fear of losing the support of a masculine figure in my life, which would make me feel unbalanced. So, I mean, you can get really specific. So, you've got the, like I said, the anterior deltoid is the gallbladder. In the back, a lot of people have issues between their shoulder blades, the rhomboids. The rhomboids are related to liver and gallbladder. And, we hear that term stabbed in the back, and we get angry from that. That's usually the muscle that's really people are referring to. And there's anger and resentment about some kind of issue where somebody got stabbed in the back, which was betrayed, something like that. You can see there on the back a lot of yellow. The spleen is the tricep muscle. So if you've got a particular weak muscle, like say, I've always actually had pretty cut up triceps, even though I never really tried. I could just put my arm a certain way and they'd pop out. But if you've got a muscle, I have got really puny little. I mean, I'm gonna change this and cancel my affirmation.
No, you're not.
Sorry, God. My calves are beautiful. Anyway, I've got small calves, okay? And calves are adrenals. And I had when I was growing up, I had a very kind of traumatic survival environment which wore my adrenals out, okay? On top of not being fed. So I really had to struggle with that. And so when you have a small muscle group, and you know what the muscle is, you can look at that and follow it back to the mental, emotional, and the physical part of the body. Does that make sense? Because it's never just about the physical. Never. If you ever take anything away from this, you should know that whatever shows up on the screen is not the whole story. I mean, this right here, this little picture you're seeing, that's not even half the story. I mean, if we looked at the program, or just the sentence that created just this program right here, it'd be huge, right? So this little pain here has got tons of information attached to it. And usually it doesn't stop here. You can keep following it down, like Donna was mentioning. This shoulder pain here may fall all the way down to the hip, and it goes on and on and on. And it's a really amazing reflection of what's going on. I used to have this, it was a Rubik's Cube that was an icosahedron, which had like 20 sides. You know, so it was like a Rubik's Cube where you have to solve the different sides. And basically it's like that, is we are multifaceted. So you can't just solve the physical side and think you've got the problem solved. Because you go, oh, it looks really good here. I mean, it looks really good on the outside. And you turn around and go, ooh, your insides are all fucked up, though. You know, and that's going to show up later. It's going to show up later, right? You've got to solve the whole freaking thing, right? And we're really good about digging this hole and this hole, but not going deep where we get the whole picture. And that takes effort and it takes dedication to yourself. To yourself. Because in the end, that's the only person you can wind up saving, is yourself. You can help a lot of other people, but the thing about helping people is they have to be willing to be helped. You know, I went through that phase, it's like you learn something, you go, oh, I want to run through the street and tell everybody. Well, that doesn't go very far, you know. It's like the pearls to swine thing. People will come to you when they're ready. And you can share information when you feel like you need to.
Well, by saving yourself, you are in effect saving everybody else.
Hell yeah, very good point, Stephen. Yeah, because what happens when you start interacting differently with those people? It actually has that reciprocal wave of going out and healing other people. Absolutely. You know, you know, Ram Dass said something I really liked. He said, may I, through the betterment of myself, be a servant to mankind. And that's it, right? If you're in a good mood and you're being conscious, or even if you're in a bad mood, but when you go somewhere you're trying to make conscious, you're controlling yourself, taking effort, and you go into a store, you don't spew that negative mood onto the receptionist or the cash register lady or guy that will then pass that on to 10 other people. You don't do that shit. A spiritual person says, no, I take responsibility for this. I'm going to suck it up and act right. And then you actually pass peace, not the other way around. And what happens is, we're split individuals. We're doing that all the time. Sometimes we'll do the good side. Sometimes we'll be the bad side. You know, sometimes I'll hop in my car. Something's going on with me. You know, I'm spewing out the negativity. But you catch those. The more conscious you are, and you start changing the pattern. It's not about being perfect right now. You accept yourself where you are, and you continue to work. Now, if you're not working and you're catching yourself, that's a different story, and that's your own stuff, not my problem. So thank God. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions about tonight? Okay, we're going to keep taking this further and further. Next week's going to be more about chest and the back, and we're going to take more time to actually delve into this and show you some ways of addressing and clearing it. Okay? It's one thing to talk about it, but you got to be able to not only talk about it, but you got to be able to grok it, which is like physically embodying the information so that you can make changes with it. Reading a book doesn't do shit for you. You got to be able to apply it, right? So, I thought we'd end with a small little meditation, and then send you out the door in a positive way.
Will you record next week?
Yeah, yeah. So you can just, it's supposed to be a short little meditation, focusing inward. You can put yourself to the side or just keep it in your lap. Just find a comfortable position. Your feet can be flat on the floor or cross-legged. You don't have to be cross-legged though. Your feet can just be relaxed. Just close your eyes and bring your attention inward. Bring all the focus you've had going out during the week, during this day, bring it inward to yourself. There are lots of different meditations out there. Some are guided. Tons of different types of guided meditation for healing and things like that. But from my perception, the main focus of meditation and the main type of meditation is the silent meditation. And the purpose of silent meditation is to help you be more and more aware of your thoughts and feelings. It brings about consciousness of yourself. It's a way of quieting your mind and emotions so that you can experience your natural state. Because you cannot experience your natural state when your mind is jibber-jabbering all over the place. And when you're doing like one of those meditations which are guiding you through something, it's a way of distracting that mind. But you don't get to master it, really. You get to kind of direct it. But in a silent meditation, when your mind starts talking about you like, oh, my knee's bothering me, and, you know, what's for dinner tonight? You know, you have to really take the effort to rein in your mind, your consciousness. So we're going to focus with silence into your heart center. It's the center point of all the chakras. When you're entirely balanced within your chakra system, in Revelations it's referred to as the 7 seals on the torus, which is a toroidal field that surrounds us. When you're in the heart center, when you're completely balanced, love shows up in everything you do, your root chakra, everything you do physically. Love shows up in your creativity, your second chakra, and your sexuality. Love shows up in your solar plexus, which is everything that you will and intend into life. Love shows up in your throat, everything you say, everything you repeat. Love shows up in your visuals, your intuition. And love shows up in your thoughts. So where love is absent in any of what we do, feel, intend, say, visualize, or think, that is where we are out of balance with God, with soul, and with self. And that's our journey here. The mirror reflection of reality points to where we have lost love for ourselves and for the rest of humanity. Whether it's an individual war you have with somebody in your life, or the collective war that we have between countries, it's all the same stuff. Focusing on your heart, just try to visualize and feel, I'd rather you feel love the best you can. If you need a visual, think of like a puppy dog or a sunset or a loved one, a child smiling, laughing. Try to get yourself to actually feel that love state. And I want you to imagine that there's energy all around your body, like there's this huge sea of chi all around you. And it's not just around you, it penetrates you, it's inside of you. And with every heartbeat, the movement of the heart causes a ripple in this fluid that's all around you. And the ripple goes out in all directions because you're in the water. It's all around you, not in one direction. It goes out in all directions. So the key to having the life you want is controlling the state, the real estate, the frequency, the emotional state of where your heart is. Because it's the one that is vibrating the fluid all around you, sending out what you want, and then bringing it back to you. It's all done from this place. All the other chakras, all the other endocrines are merely servants of the heart. We've forgotten that. We've gotten too head heavy. We think it's all about the head. It's all about the heart. You can think about the crucifixion, the symbolism there with the thorny crown on Jesus' head. It was the pain of getting out of the mind that brought Jesus completely in unification with God again and his own heart. And the heart is simply the Holy Grail. There's not one of them, there's millions of them. You have a Holy Grail in the center of you. It was said that the Holy Grail held the blood of Christ. What holds our blood? It's our heart. It's the very center of our chakra system, and it is through this chakra, through this energy state, that we tune in to the myriad realities that are all around us, from good to bad, So focus on your heart. I'll give you some silence here. Imagine love, and imagine that ripple of love going out in all directions. And imagine the wave coming back to you. And be open the coming week for that love to show up in lots of different ways. Ways that you may not even be aware of. Don't limit it. But for now, just focus on your heart and imagine when it beats, it moves in your chest, vibrating this chi sea that we live in, sending that out everywhere to the ends of the universe and back. Your mind tends to wander, bring it back to focusing on your chest and love. Focus on the feeling. Let your thoughts be lost in the feeling. I want you to keep feeling the heartbeat, visualizing that in the sea of chi. But at the same time, I want you to be more aware of your physical body now. I want you to bring back that sensation, not leave it. But I want you to try to walk around whenever possible the next week, trying to feel that your heart is in a sea of chi. And with every beat, you're sending out a frequency to create not only what's going to show up in your body, but what's going to show up in your life, and on the collective playing field that we're all in. Bring your attention more and more back to your heart. Back to your physical body. And just slowly moving your body. Bringing back that awareness, trying to keep it and play with it the coming week. Just imagine what you're putting out every moment, with every emotion, every thought. What is your heart, how's your heart vibrating in the sea chi? When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you. Well, if anybody has any questions or anything, that's it for tonight. Thank y'all for coming up. A couple of new faces. Thank y'all for showing up, playing with us. We're doing it next Sunday. Thursday's a Reiki trade here. Same time, 6 to 8, Reiki trade. We usually have like 4 tables. One person gets on, and we do some energy work, and everybody rotates on and off. some people, I used to have it just for Reiki people, but I've kind of opened it up. If you want to see what that's about, you can come play with the energy. That's Thursday. I don't think I think, yeah, Thursday, that should be good. And then Sunday, we'll be doing chest, upper back. We're just going to be slowly going down the body and playing with, because there's, I mean, we could revisit this next time because there's so much information we can play with. Anybody got any questions?
Should I add something?
Yeah, yeah.
I love what you said in the meditation about the heart being everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because on the physical level, if your heart is lacking nutrients to function properly,
Yeah.
it will draw from the thyroid first, and then after it sucks everything from the thyroid, it goes to the adrenals and then to the brain, which is why as we age, the brain generally is the last to go.
Yeah. Interesting. That's cool.
And so the whole physical body is constantly supporting that heart. And so on the spiritual, mental, emotional level, it's the support of the heart.
Perfect.
And I love that.
I love that too. Thank you for that.
It's also the one organ that connects every other organ of the body.
True. And another thing about the heart, Donna reminded me, is that your blood pH has got to be in a small window. And if you go out of that window, there's major hell to pay. So your blood will rob that, you know, from other parts of the body just to maintain that. So really, the heart's the main. Imagine it's the one thing that you cannot do without, right?
Your breath, yeah.
Yeah.
My cousin was died by the time that he got to the emergency room or the hospital. He was brain dead from an aneurysm that had busted. But it wasn't until 16 hours later that they pronounced him dead, because that's how long it took for the heart to run down.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. Well, thank you all very much for coming out and playing.